Okay, hi everybody. My name's Simon Shaw. I'm the Chief Executive at Redbridge Rainbow. We're back in action after 6 months, as I guess you all know, being on the presentation today. Really grateful for everyone being here today, but also lots of you have been really great support as we get going again, giving lots of advice and opportunities to work with you. So sorry, just having a slight problem with the slides. There we go. So our event today is really summarising some of the information that's come through our survey that we did over the summer and autumn, asking people what life is like for LGBTQ plus people in Redbridge. So I'll go through some of the findings from that, and then some of the actions that we think could be really important to support the community. And then there'll be an opportunity for Q&A, but also comments, reactions. Some of this stuff can take a while to percolate, so I appreciate people may not have immediate questions, but it'd be great to get a sense of any questions or thoughts you have following the presentation. So I will talk for a bit, unfortunately, but recording it would be great just to have this all in one go. Feel free to ask questions or make comments in the chat as I speak, and I can scroll through that after the presentation as well. So just in case people don't know about Redbridge Rainbow, we're the local charity in Redbridge for LGBTQ plus people, whether they live, work, visit or study in the borough. And we have our aims of supporting the community by running events and activities to support and connect local LGBTQ plus people, to help local services to be LGBTQ inclusive, and raising any issues that affect LGBTQ plus people with local services, organisations and decision makers. And as we get going into sort of 2024, we will have more of a rolling programme, particularly of events and community events and activities for our community. Some of that is subject to some funding applications we've got in or will be putting in, but the idea is, yes, we're a lot more back in action from 2024. And I think I'm going to be covering mostly some quite heavy issues and challenges, but I did think it was important to start just with celebrating our LGBTQ plus community and the allies that we have in Redbridge. So we've got the work that's Fahim Khan and others are doing in our schools. We've got the celebrations around Pride and History Month, which council and councillors do get involved in, as well as other allies and partners. Some of our local big public sector organisations have been involved in the Stonewall Diversity Champions programme. And just a bit of a plug for our own event on the 5th of December, which is a winter gathering, yeah, just to connect people as well as have some fun activities, we hope. And we also just wanted to celebrate our networks as well, just to sort of give a shout out to some of the people that I particularly met over the last 6 months and would like to meet. And this is by no means exhaustive, but we have some great partners in ELOP and Positive East, but also I particularly wanted to highlight those organisations working with different faith communities, as well as organisations working with trans and non-binary people. And yes, I say this is just a taster, but it's just to sort of, I guess, acknowledge that we know that there's a lot out there for people, and we're trying to be add some value as a local organisation in Redbridge. So now I'm coming on to our survey findings. So we had 50 plus people engaged with our survey and some workshops we held in September. So we're really grateful to those people for taking the time to respond and for sharing, personal things with us. And due to the sample size, we can't really talk about statistics of percentage of LGBTQ plus people in the borough, think X or Y, but it has given us a really clear sense of some of the key issues for people. And as I say, this is focusing slightly on the challenges that people face more than what they celebrate. But we certainly did get some comments coming through about what does happen in the borough and why people do enjoy living in the borough or visiting the borough. But I think, yeah, the quotes that we have through the presentation do illustrate some of those key issues. So that's what we're sort of relying on today. And I know I do also want to acknowledge that there are many of you on the calls today who are taking action and are responding to some of these issues. So it's fantastic to know. So this first issue that came up was around visibility of the LGBTQ plus community in Redbridge and some of the social isolation that is linked to that. And so people talking about there being no LGBTQ plus venues or openly welcoming spaces, I guess explicitly welcoming spaces is, and I think people were particularly comparing Redbridge to other boroughs, sort of little visibility of LGBTQ plus people. Someone saying flippantly that well, maybe not flippantly, that they feel like they're the only gay in the village, and I think, well, that's a sort of yeah, but I think it sort of emphasizes actually a very real feeling there. But then someone here acknowledging sort of events that have happened in the libraries, which is fantastic, but also then saying that they're the only events that they're aware of in the borough. And then a very, very sort of sobering quote, I guess, from someone who said that their peer group died in the 90s and they haven't ever really managed to recreate a network after that. So I think some very extreme cases of social isolation as well. And people would like to see more LGBTQ plus focused activities, welcoming activities. Some people want there to be a dedicated space. Some people feel that might be a bit artificial and would just like to feel more welcome in venues across the borough. So there's not one view here. I think the common thread was sort of more visibility and more sense of being explicitly welcomed, proactively welcomed, not just tolerated. And then in terms of experiences and services, again, this was more, what we heard was more some of the more negative or challenging experiences. But I know there is some great work going on in local services to support LGBTQ plus people. But I think, yeah, echoing the visibility point, people saying that they weren't clear whether services locally um, are as inclusive as they could be, really spelling that out to people and making people feel welcome. That's what they felt they needed. So someone felt that, yeah, gay and heterosexual relationships were still not equally recognized or treated. Someone saying they find it very difficult to have their pronouns respected, and some feeling that staff can be judgmental, make them feel ashamed, which is obviously not great for that person, but also not great for services in terms of reaching people and making sure people come forward, particularly early on in any symptoms, to make sure they're getting treatment as soon as they can. And I think people were mainly talking about health, social care, and council services here. Um, and another challenge was around people feeling whether they could be themselves. And there is obviously such wonderful diversity in the borough, and that's clearly got to be celebrated. And really importantly, through our survey, it was clear that a lot of the respondents, about half, had some kind of faith or spiritual belief. So it's really important not to sort of split people and split their identities and cultures in a way that's unhelpful. But alongside that really wonderful diversity, there is there have been reported to us experiences of discrimination that appear to be related to faith and culture, but also perceptions of that as well. I think fear that people might not be accepted because of another person's beliefs or faith, and that may or may not be true, of course. But I think the perception and the fear is very real. And yes, someone at the bottom there feeling that they'd had a better experience in another borough and then came to Redbridge and felt that wasn't so much the case. So I think a really interesting area of work for us, really important, and that's why, yeah, I was particularly keen to reference those faith-based organisations earlier on, because I think there's some great work we could do together, and they're already doing fantastic work reaching their specific groups. And unfortunately, people did report significant experiences and concerns around feeling safe, being discriminated against, people feeling someone felt that verbal abuse had decreased, people being laughed at, and then this sort of self-censorship, I suppose, of people feeling like they can't hold their partner's hand in certain areas, or perhaps censoring how they behave, what they say, etc. And this can apply across all types of people, of course, but it came through pretty strongly as part of the survey. And unfortunately, we did have a few comments around people not really trusting the systems that are in place for people to report, particularly hate crime, or when they feel uncomfortable. And I think some of that is the ongoing legacy of Stephen Port murders in Barking. But I think there's also some distrust of systems for reporting across the police and TfL in particular. And I know there is work being done to reach out to the community and address some of those, but it's going to take time to heal some of that for sure. So that's the end of just some of our key findings. And so I wanted to really just come on to sort of what opportunities people sort of seem to be encouraging us and services and organisations within the borough to take on and think about. So activities and events. So on the left there is our spread up flip chart from when we went to Waltham Forest Pride in the summer, and people gave us so many ideas for all the kind of events they would like to see in the borough. Some is happening, and some we're thinking about putting on, again, subject to some funding and our plans for the new year. Some might be best placed with others as well. And I think, yes, it's just echoing again this need for some sort of sense of LGBTQ plus safety and a safe place where people know they can be themselves. And again, yeah, this person gave an example of the local HUK explicitly doing that, or a walking group, etc. So um, um, I think it's something to think about how explicitly organisations can put on LGBTQ focused activities, or make it very, very clear that their activities are LGBTQ plus focused, whether that's making that very explicit on a flyer, including the progress or the pride flag on a flyer, specifically stating that if you're running groups for specific people, making clear that they're inclusive, etc. And then around visibility, I think there are some really exciting opportunities for the borough. Um, and some of that is about physical spaces again, which is perhaps longer term objectives, but films being shown, um, faith and community leaders embracing LGBTQ plus people publicly, um, people feeling that yes, they do love the local area, but they would like to feel that they can see themselves reflected, whether that's in hoardings on buildings that sort of show people perhaps around the building site where housing is being developed, or LGBTQ people featured in those sort of publicity hoardings around building site. Is it about having flags in Pride and Progress flags in shop windows, in cafe windows, showing a level of welcome? And we've also got LGBTQ plus History Month coming up in February, and then Pride Month in June. So we're just working with any partners that want to set up events during those 2 months in particular. We'll help to publicise them, and we'll be issuing a newsletter later today, actually asking for people to submit any ideas they have for events in February for History Month, so that we can feature them on a bit of a flyer and the sort of shared publicity we can do. And then in terms of services, people felt that there was a need for more training, for people to really understand what LGBTQ plus inclusion looks like, especially for it to be more than just the sort of very simple approach to equal opportunities, which is treating everybody the same, which isn't, as I'm sure you will understand, necessarily what equal opportunities is about. It's about everybody having access to the same level of service and support. It might mean taking different approaches to ensure that different groups. So I think just people encouraging that really more nuanced and more sort of developed understanding of what equal access for LGBTQ plus people looks like. And yeah, sort of the council and others was raised as being more vocal about LGBTQ plus concerns and issues. And our friends at ELOC, who are based in Waltham Forest but cover different bits of East London, they run some CPD accredited training. We're also very happy to attend team meetings, run workshops specifically with services and organisations within the borough. So please get in touch if that's something you'd like to explore with us, and particularly if it can link to History Month or Pride Month, that's a really good time to engage staff and volunteers and colleagues. And yes, coming on to community safety, here I am with colleagues from the Met and the council recently at the hate crime stall that was held in the Exchange in Ilford, which was a really great opportunity to meet a real mix of local people. There's opportunities to make sure that people know how to report hate crime through directly to the police, or there is a Zoteria an app as well if people feel they would rather use that. We've been looking at the Ask for Clive campaign, which is about venues displaying that sticker on the left to show that it's somewhere that if someone's experienced abuse, they can go to that venue and that a member of staff will know what to do if they just ask for Clive. That's not particularly present in the borough at the moment, and it's something we could explore. And then there are lots of ways to get involved with us. We're working on our website. It probably will have a bit of a revamp, fuller revamp at some point, but we're trying to just make sure it's got up-to-date information. And we've introduced a listings page in particular where we list our own events as well as other events happening in the borough or London or perhaps online. There's lots of events online now that we think might be of particular interest to our community. We can feature opportunities on the page there. We're currently featuring an opportunity for to feedback around bereavement and end of life services in the borough. We have a directory that can become a bit of a never-ending list, but we did think it was important to update that because there are a lot of organisations where we're just trying to help people navigate the different uh, options for support, activities, etc. So we do break that down into community safety, being yourself, health, etc. So do have a look at that. And we obviously have, we are a small charity, so we have created a support us page where a few of us are running the Red Run on Saturday, organised by Positive East. And so we're fundraising for that if anyone would like to have a look at our page. And there are lots of ways to stay in touch with us. We've got the website, we've got the email address, and if you look on our link tree, and I'll share these links afterwards with you all, you can follow us on social media and sign up to our newsletter, which is a really good way to stay in touch with us. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.